Hi guys, welcome to another episode of our full stack mobile development series. In today's episode, we are going to complete the onboarding process. We are going to integrate the currencies, the account type, and the account APIs. In our previous episode, we built the account screen. As you can see here, continue. All right, now what we are going to do in this episode is to integrate the APIs to load the currencies as well as to load the account types from the backend. And once we are done, we are going to validate the form and then submit the form to create an account. To begin, we head over to Android Studio. This is my project. The first thing we want to do is we want to set up the API integrations for currencies and accounts. Now, to do this, we are going to need three files. We are going to first need the model, we are going to need the controller, as well as the service that's going to persist the data in our Hive box. So we head over to our lib, models, and then we create a new .dat file. We call it the currency. All right, so just as we had for the user, we are going to create a Hive type. I can go ahead and copy this, or we can go ahead and type it all over again, but I'll just go ahead and copy this just to save time. I change this to currency. All right, now for the type ID, we are supposed to give a unique type ID to every model that we create. So for the user model, it's type ID 1, currency would then be type ID 2, and then this is my currency model. Okay, I also need to change this, and I'm going to call my box currencies. All right, so let's look at the currency response from the API. All right, now to do this, let's look at the API response for the currencies. So we head over to Postman. Let me close this. You go to currencies, and then we get the currency. So you have the name, the ID code, symbol position. These are the things that we are going to persist. So name, code, which is a string. I'm going to need another string for symbol, another one for symbol position. Okay, and then the other one for the 1000 separator. I'm just going to copy this, and then another one for the decimal separator. Go ahead and do the decimal places. So decimal places, for the decimal places is a type of integer, because like 2 or 3 decimal place or 0. And then we have the sample. So the sample is going to be our last item. So I'm going to add item number 8, and this is going to be sample, and our sample is going to be a string. Okay, all right, so we have this. Now this is complaining because we've not run the build runner to generate the .g.dat file, and we can do that by simply going to activated terminal, that run build runner build. Few seconds, and then we have our files. Okay, all right, so now we have our currency.g file. It creates the part file that we want. Okay, now we have our model. The next thing we want to do is we want to create our service for the currency. So I'm going to my services folder, create service. We have one for auth. I go ahead and remove this. We no longer need it. We have one for auth. I can just go ahead and copy that. For now, I'm just trying to save time, so pardon me if I'm moving too fast. So we have our currency service. We can go ahead and remove everything here. We don't need all of this. I'm going to use what we need. Okay, so for currency, we want to create a currency. So we take a map of a currency, and then we first open the currency box, which is going to be our currency model.currency box. So that's our currency box. For currencies, we don't want to clear, we just want to keep putting the currencies there. All right, so this is going to be currency model. There's going to be one user for the app, but there's going to be multiple currencies, so we don't want to clear, but we are saving new ones. All right, and then I have my currency box. Okay, so for the currency model, let's remove all of this. We do not need it. In our map, we are going to have the ID, we are going to have the name, code. So just as we did, code maps to code, symbol maps to symbol, the name maps to name, The next thing is the symbol position. Okay, just copy that. In case 1000 separator, the decimal separator. Make sure you don't confuse that with the decimal places. And then we have our decimal places. And the last thing is the sample, right? So once we have this, then what we are going to do is we are going to take our currency box and we are going to put the currency model in our box. So for this ID, which is going to be our UID, put this there. When you are done, return this currency model, sorry. So this will return a currency model. And that means I have to change this to a currency model. So now, as you can see, this will create one currency model. However, for the currencies, we are getting them in a list. So we have to create all of them at once. Now, what we can do is we can go ahead and duplicate this. Okay, this one is to create one currency. This is to create multiple currencies. So create currencies, and this is going to take a list of that map. So a list of currencies. All right. Now, because we are getting a chunk and we are putting all of it, then we want to clear. So here, just as we did in the auth for that, we might want to await and then currency box dot clear. So we clean up everything in that currency box and then we create a new currency. So we are going to do this for every currency in our currencies, right? So we are going to loop through and then we are going to create it. So here we take this, we put it here. Now, because you are creating multiple currencies, that means you are going to return a list of currencies, right? Not one currency. So I have this here. That means I need to keep track of the items I'm creating. So here I'm going to have my currency models, and that's because it's a list. And that's what I'm supposed to return, right? So my currency models. So now when I put this in the box, then for my currency models, I add the one I just created. Okay. So now look at this. We have this code repeating twice, right? We can make this a bit cleaner by either wrapping this create currencies, putting this in here and letting the loop call this. But the problem is if we do that, this is going to be opened every single time. We are going to waste time on doing that. Or we abstract away this. And I think that would be the best. So what we are going to do is we are going to copy this, head over to our model, and then down here we are going to create a method to do that. So we have our currency model, which is equal to from map. Now this is going to take a map of string dynamic currency, and then we are going to use it to return. So we have our map. All right, so we go back to our currency service. So we copy this. All right, and put this here. So I take this, and when I'm done, I return it. Okay, at this point, I'm not saving it to the database. I'm just creating an object of this currency model, right? Okay, and then I head back to my services. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and remove all of this. Sorry, all of this down here, and then say that currency model from map. Now it's not going to pop up because I'm using it as a static. So that means I have to define this as a static. And then now I have this. Once I have this, I have my currency model from map. And in here, I pass my map. And then I get this. So I go ahead, copy this, replace this entire code with that. So we have one place of doing the mapping. So from a map, we can also convert to a map, right? But for now, just what we are doing. And now we have our currency service to create the currencies. For now, that's what we are doing. Then the last thing we need is our controller. So the controller, like as explained in the previous episode, is going to be responsible for handling the API calls. The service is going to be responsible for the logic around saving the data that we work with. And the model is the entities that we are using. All right, so I create a new one, call it currency. I go ahead and copy everything in the auth for now. We place it here. We need just one function to work with. We are going to build on top. All right, so I go ahead and rename this to currency controller. And for the currency controller, we are going to load all the currencies for now. We're going to load all of them at once. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this also. Okay, so we need a load. And now this load is going to call this API and then return this. All right. Now, one thing is with the API, if you do not pass the per page, it's going to return everything. It's not going to be paginated. So first, let's set up our route. Currency is /currency. So /currency, and we call it the currency API, currency URL, sorry. So that's our currency URL. Now this is a GET request, not a POST request. Take note. And Tacit does not have any of this. We could pass the search and everything in here, but for now we are not doing that. Now, when we get the results, inside the results, we are going to have this array of currencies. So we get our results, and then we extract the array of currencies from this, which is going to be our list. So over here is called currencies. So that's what we have here. Now we want to get our currency. So what we are going to do is final currencies is equal to our currency service. And then we are going to create a currency. So here I pass the list, which is going to be this. At this point, I have a list of currencies. I can return that straight away from here. And this will work. And that's because in our results, we said that the result is dynamic. All right, so now we just remove this, remove the unused ones. Now let's go through again. We make a GET request, we get our response. In the response, we get our results. And then in the results, we get the currencies. We pass the list to create currencies. And then we return the list of currencies to whoever calls, wherever we call this in our application. Now, the last thing is once we are done with all of this, because we are working with Hive, you need to go to the main.dat file and then over here, register the currency model adapter. That is very important. Now, once you're done, you can go ahead and hot reload or hot restart the entire application. And then we proceed. Now, let's use that to get the currency. Okay. Now, before we proceed, let's make a few adjustments to our view. Okay, so add account. Now, in our select inputs here, we first want to change this from a bottom sheet to a modal bottom sheet so that when you tap outside, it can just go away. Okay. Now, let's change the list of items. So we need a list of currencies. Okay, so we are going to have a list of currency model. Okay, so that's going to be our currencies. And that's go ahead and import it. And now the selected currency will no longer be a string, but will be the selected the model, which is nullable. And then we go ahead and then update this. So if the currency is selected, we get the currency symbol, or we just want to show the code for now. The symbol is sometimes a bit hard to read. Okay, so that's our code. And then over here, let's fix the names. So I said we are not hard coding any strings. String currency, and then strings account type. Okay. Now this is complaining because the selected item is different from the types. The list of items, there's a string, there's an object, so we have to fix it. Another thing is in our select input component over here, we should give a name to this so that whenever you generate the unchanged, they would have that. Okay, so here we change this to currencies. And then unchanged is going to be a currency model, a nullable currency model, and then you set state. Okay, here we need to add const. Okay, now we are going to have this error. Don't worry, just hot restart because you've changed the type in the select input. Okay, now another error. This is because when it was a string, the package that we are using has inbuilt support for string. However, we are using a custom type, and that means we need to declare certain methods. If you look at the documentation, go back to this. It's a bit explains it a bit further. Okay, so over here, if you're using a custom type, then what you need to do is you need to specify what the is equal is, the to string, and then the a string. Okay, so first we are going to need this, and then the is equal. So here we head over to our currency model. I need to open the model, sorry. Okay, so this is my currency model. And then at the bottom, we add this. So this is going to be what is going to be shown as a list item. So here we have the name. I want to append the code. So the code can use interpolation. So yeah, now that is it. The other thing is we need a compare function. So SQL compares the currency model, and then here we don't necessarily need this. Okay, now let's use this. And we need to first pass what the compare function is. So we need a compare function for this. The compare function is nullable. That means for strings and those things we will not pass it, right? But for these ones you need to pass it, and this is the function definition. So I need to just add final boolean function compare, and then because it's optional, that means we add it here and it's not required. Okay, now when it's provided, we just pass it to our drop down search widget here. If not, we do not. Okay, so now once we're done with this is our select component, select input component. We have the option to pass a compare function, right? Okay, so what the compare function is saying is that, let's say we have the item 1 and item 2. Compare if item 1 is equal to item 2. Okay, so I need to rename this. Okay, so that would run this to check if the IDs are the same. If you want to check on the code or anything, something that uniquely identifies them, that's what we are going to use. Now, once I am done, I head back to here, I save this. Now let's look at our code. Now the error is gone. We have no data, right? But we have data for this. We have no data because we've not loaded the currencies. Let's go ahead and load the currencies. Now to load the currencies, what we are going to need is the init state. Okay, so when the application is initialized, let's init screen. Okay, so this is going to be our function that's going to be called when the application screen is initialized. Okay, now here we are going to load currencies. Okay, we can do this in here or we can improve it further, but for now let's do this. What we are going to have is we're going to have our final result, which is going to be an await of the currency controller where we load. Okay, so this has to be defined as async. So we are awaiting this, and then once we get it, we check, is it successful? Yes. And for the results, which is going to be our currencies, it's not null. So that means there are a list of currencies. If there are currencies, then if there are currencies, then we just set state and say that our currencies is equal to our result, which is not null. If you leave this, you're gonna have everything sorted. Okay, because we are doing the now checker. All right, now let's go back, come back. We have no data. Now let's look at what the result is. So we can go ahead here and print this result.message just to see what the error is. I head over to my run, go back, come back. It says, sorry, you need to have an active internet connection. That means the application is struggling to connect. So let's check the IP on my application, on my network changed. So I need to make sure that I have the right IP. Okay. So it's no longer this, it's now that. All right, it's 173. So let's restart the entire application and then go back again. So continue. Now we're having an error where it's complaining that the future list is not type of that. We can fix it. So let's go back and fix it. In our load over here, we have the currencies, which will return a list, and then we are passing the currency. So that's our message, but we have an error on the currency model. Okay. So here, let's print this first. Now let's comment this out and let's print this first. we are getting an instance of a future. So that means from our service here, this is a future, and then we are returning the currency list. Now, because this is a future, that means we have to await it here. Good. So now that's we await it, that means we get the currencies all at once. So now let's go back to our add currency. We remove the set state because we're getting the error. Go back. Now we have all our currencies. All right. So the issue was the await on the service. It's very important that you await all your async methods. Okay. Now realize there are a lot of currencies, right? You don't want the user to go through all of this and search. So what we are going to do is in our select input, we are going to add another thing over here. We are going to say that show search box, and this is true. Now that means if I come here, I'm going to have this search box. But for this two items, I do not want to have this search box. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this as a parameter. So function bool, which is nullable, is going to be show search box. Okay. And then I'm going to add it. Since it's nullable over here, what I'm going to say is widget dot show. Now this won't work because of this const here, so we're going to take it out first. Show search box. This is nullable, so that means you need to set what the default value is. So by default it's false unless you set it. Then we go back to our add account. In our view here, over here we say show search box is true. So the search box will be shown for this one, but not for that one. Let's improve our search box. So search field properties, that's from properties, padding, edge insert all. Let's put some padding around our search box so that it's not right on the corner. So that's our search box there. We can make it a bit more nicer where we only put the padding on the top for now. So we close it. The padding is on the top, and then we need some padding on the left and right. So let's say left is 8, right is 8, and then bottom is 24 for now. Let's look at how it looks. Okay, so it's on the same. No, saying 16 is enough. Okay. All right, so it's on the same line as this. Now we can look for a currency. We look for US dollars and we select it, and then USD shows up here. We can look for Ghana cedi, and then GHS shows up here. We can also show the code and the symbol, but the problem is, let's say if you have a dollar, there are so many kinds of dollars. Is it the Canadian dollar or that? So that's why we are showing the code for now. So that's how to load the currencies. It's pretty much straightforward. We've made some adjustments. Now let's do the same thing for the account types. So let's look at the account types. This is the result for the account type. So it's just the name, code, description, and the ID. So as we started the first one, we create the model. So I'm just going to duplicate the currency model since it's similar. Change this to account underscore type. The type ID is now 3. I change this to account type model. We go down to name, code, and description. Those are the only things that we have. We remove the rest. We change this to account type box, which is going to be our account underscore types. Okay. So this is more like your table name. Okay. Then here we are going to have our account type model. So that's going to be the from map, which is going to have the account type. Like I said, it's only the name, code, and description. Everything else we do not need. Okay, so I change this. Okay. Here we are creating an account type model, not currency. So we change all of this. All right, and then return that. So this is description. Now for the compare, which is equal, we change this to account type. For the account types, we do not want to show the code. We just want to show the name, what the name is. Okay, so just the name. You can go ahead and remove the wait for interpolation. All right. Now we need to generate this type file. So as we did, we go ahead, run our build. Whilst this is running, we can move on to the next thing. The next thing we need is our services. So the service for that, I duplicate this. I call it account type. All right. So I have my account type here. I change this to account type. All right. So that's my account type. And then everything, the fastest way is we can also find and replace. So everything currency, we change this to account type. And for the lowercase, we fix it because I'm doing case sensitive. Okay. And then here, this is underscore. You can also go ahead and remove it and then import it again just to be sure you have the right link. So just as we did, we open a Hive box, we get it, we put it in there for creating currencies, which is going to be account types, right? So just to be sure that I don't have anything currency here, account types. Okay. So account types, we get the account type. When we are getting all of them here, we just clean up everything and we get a list, we put everything, we return the list. Okay. And that is it. So we've done the model, we've done the service. The next thing is we need to do the controller. So I duplicate the currency and I call it account type. Okay, so the same thing. Fastest way is find and replace. Okay, so we do uppercase, we do the lowercase ones. Like I said, we are doing underscore for the file name, so it's going to have that. Now we need a up route. There's a problem here. In our API here, we were using this up route currency URL, API route, sorry. So that's it. Now we need to create one for account type. So let's look at the account type route. It's account hyphen type. Okay. So we put it there. So account type URL. Let me fix the typo. So that's it. And then we import our account type service. We create account types. This is not currency. This is account types. Okay. So when we get the account type, is that. That's the key in the map. And then when we are done, we return that. So here the type is implicit, right? It's implicit because result is dynamic, but depending on the type you get from this service, that's what's being passed in the result. Now, once we are done, we've done our model, we've done the service, we've done the controller. The next thing is we head over to our main.dat file, and then we get the model adapter. All right, so you have our account type. Let's look at our model account type. 1 is user, 2 is currency, account type is 3. Okay, now all is done. Let's restart. We head over to this. Now we have our currency loaded. Now let's do the same thing for the account type. So in my account type, my add account UI, I think we can do a bit of a cleanup, split it. So yeah, this is our neat screen. Let's split it. So balance form, and that's going to be this top part. Okay. That's going to be my balance form. Okay. And then I have this column as well. That's going to be my account form or details form. That's going to return. We don't want our main file to be, yeah. All right, so we are working in here. For the second one, so this is the one for the first one. I can put some space in for now just to show you. All right, so this is the currency. We are going to do the same thing. We are going to need the list. So list account type model, which is going to be account types. And then we are going to need one to keep the state. So an allowable account type is selected account type. All right, we head down here, we change this to account types. That means we need to change what the selected value is, and then over here we change this to selected account type. So we set the value. Now, because this is a custom type, we need the compare, which is going to be our, we can go ahead and just copy this. It's the same thing because it's also going to call the compare function. Remember, this does not have a search. Okay. Now, if we go and we come back, now this is going to be empty. That's because we've not loaded it in our init screen here. So in our init screen, if we are to load the account types here, okay, what we are doing is that first load, wait, once the currency is done, then you load the account type. But we do not want to do that. I want to load them concurrently, right? So I come here, I create load currencies. And then I move this in here. I can then call this here and remove the assign because I'm not waiting for what the resource is going to be. And then I load account types. All right, now this is assign. So over here, load that. Now because I am not awaiting any of this, the API, so the request will run concurrently, right? Now over here, I'm calling my account type controller. Okay, and I'm loading. And then when I have my results, I'm going to set it to the account types. Okay, let's restart everything. All right, so now let's go ahead and test. As you can see, we have all our account types loaded and our currencies loaded. Now, one last thing, if you realize when I duplicated this, for example, if I put this here, it does not complain, right? It's not a problem, but it shouldn't be the case, right? If we are loading currencies, we should not be able to pass it to this. So that means we need to set the type of the result. Okay. Now to do this, we head over to our load currency here. And then in the result type, which we know this is dynamic, we want to specify what the type is. So this is going to return a currency, a list of currency models, right? So this is going to return a list of currency models. So that means that over here, it has to be a list of currency models. Now the dynamic is nullable. That means we need to also say that, oh, this is not nullable. This is going to always have that return because we are checking the null here. And then we head over to this and then we do the same thing. So I can just go ahead and close this. Now this is going to return a list of account type models. Okay. Now wherever this is called, also the same thing. That means if I'm to say that set the result of this to this, it should tell you that, hey, the types are not the same. All right. Now this helps you to make sure that you assign the right results to the right variables. Okay. Now we will still have the same feedback. Okay. Now we've been able to set up our APIs to get the currencies and the account types and then display it in a select box here, which is our component we built. And then we have the search. So we can look for Ghana CD. We can look for the Norwegian krona. And then we have the NOK. And this is going to be general. And then here I'm going to say test. Okay. All right. I think I need to change something in the details. Now, this is not the app name. It's the name. Sorry. Because it was showing Penger up there. All right. Now, the next thing is we have to validate our form. So let's go ahead and validate the form. To do that, what we are going to do is we are going to create a variable for our form. So final form key, just as we did in our previous episodes, we are just going to need this form key. Okay, so it's just a form key, which is a global key of a form state. And then we are going to take everything now because our list has the form split in different areas. We're just going to take the whole list view here, open form widgets, put the list as the child, and then for the key, put our form key. All right, so we have our form here. And then when they tap it, we want to validate to make sure that everything works. As you can see, we are tracking what the currency model is. We are tracking what the account type is. We need to also track the balance they enter and the name that the user enters. So to do that, we need a test editing controller for the balance. Going to be a test editing controller. And we are going to need another one for the name. Okay. Now, because you're working with these ones, you also then need focus nodes to be able to move up and down. So focus node, balance, focus. Okay. And then I need one for my name. That means in my test input component, this is going to be name, and then my focus node is going to be my name focus. Okay. Now for this custom test form field, my controller is going to be balance, and by default you want to set the testing the balance to 0 so that they know that they can change it. Okay. And then I need to set the focus node to be the balance focus. All right. So that we can go ahead and change this. Now, in the previous episode, I talked about the user's locale and how it affects the keyboard. So currently, I can show you if I go to my settings and I look for my region. All right. So currently I'm in Norway. So this is how we write decimals. We use the period for decimals and space for the separation for thousands and all that. When you change it to this, which is the regular one, and then you show the keyboard, you realize now I have a period, right? If I go back and I change this to what I have and I show the keyboard, then I have this. Okay. Now what we are going to do is, regardless of the user's locale, we should be able to make sure that they either use a period or a comma for the decimal values. Okay. Now this is very important if you are aiming to build the application for different regions other than Africa or the US, the Americas, because they use the period, which is regular. Now to do this, that means we have to limit what the user types. Okay, so come down here, and then I need an input formatter. So what I'm trying to say is that I want to filter out some unwanted items. So filtering test input formatter, and then I'm going to say that I want to allow a specific pattern. Now for this, I don't want to bore you. I have this regex here. I'm going to go ahead and copy that, and I'm going to explain it to you. So what this is saying, that take decimal values, right? It take numbers from 0 to 9. So it could be 105, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then after that, accept either a period, a comma only. After that, you can accept any length of numbers again. So what we are trying to say is that here, if I type 52, I can put this and type 55. I cannot type this again. Now, if I remove this and I come back here, as you can see, I can type several of them. But once I put it back, I can't type it again. So if the user has this set, that means they can only type the period once. Because I've already typed the comma, then I can't type it again. So 125.5. I can't have this again, but I can have multiple decimal places. Now, because we are dealing with money and the highest for most currencies is 3 decimal places, we can update this and say that from 0 to 3, that's the maximum length. And then we head over. Now we type 125.123. I cannot go any further. Okay, so this, you format what the user can enter. Now I go ahead and set it back to what I have, and then I can clean everything and type again 125. So I know this to be 125.555, 3 decimal places. If you want, you can restrict it to 2, but we are doing this because there are currencies that support up to 3 decimal places. So that's why we are doing this. All right. So now we've sorted out this. If I go ahead and choose USD, I have my US dollars. Now I need to put my name and then continue. So before I submit, I need to validate. Okay. Now to do this, for the test input component, we've already handled validation. And the only way to activate it is to say that it's required. And then you say that true. Now let's trigger the validation. When the user taps the form, we want to say that handle submit. And this is going to handle when the user submits it. And then over here, we're going to say that if the form key dot current state dot validate, and I'm going to say that's now. Okay, now if it's not valid, then I return. Okay, so I do not continue with whatever I'm supposed to do. And then on my on press here, I do not want to navigate away, but rather want to handle submit. Okay, so when I do this, it tells me the name is required, but it does not tell me the select input here is required, even though I have already just the currency. That means we need to add validation to the select input. Luckily, we already have the it's enabled and it's required and all that. To validate it, what we are going to do is, if you remember from our test input validation, we had this auto validate mode and the validator. We can easily copy this, come down here and put it here. Now, for the auto validate mode, you have to rename it. They use the camel casing. All right, so on user interaction, here, if the widget is required, no validation. If not, we check here, we check if the value is null, because it's always going to be a value or null. And then we import our strings and then we say this. Now we don't have password checks or anything. Now we can simplify this by saying that if the widget is required, right, and the value is null, throw the error. If not, go ahead and return now. There's no issue. So here, if I press continue, I'm supposed to get the validation here. And to do that, I head over to this. And then I need to specify that is required to be true. I need to do the same thing here. On this one is required as true. And then I push it. Now it tells me the account type is required. So if I go back, come back and I do this, all three are required. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Now if I do this and I do that, this should also show that it's required. And it's very simple. We just as we did, we copy this, we head over to the account type. Now because this is a custom test form field, it does not follow the component that we built. We do this, we know that it's already required. So if it's not and it's all this, we say that app strings dot balance. So balance is required. We do not need that. Okay, now you can see the test is white. We cannot see, honestly we cannot see. So what we are going to do is, in our decoration here, we're going to do error style, and you're going to say test style color is colors dot white. Now this will change the cursor and the color for this. So if I continue to change this, it tells me it's required 56.50. Okay, I entered my name. So this is test account. I go to next. I select my UXD and I continue. It tells me the account type, which is going to be my general account. Now, once I'm done, it's valid. Now let's go ahead and then submit the request. To do that, here we prepare our data. We already have the balance, the name and everything. One last issue, the 56.50, I can go ahead and print it here. Okay, so test. Now let's look at it. If I do this, I get 56.50, but this is not a double. So that means we need to pass that. I can go ahead and then say that our balance, so final balance amount is equal to this, and trim it, and then replace all comma with full stop period there, and then I print this. Can use interpolation here. Now if I print this, I get my decimal, which is 56.50. So even if I type 56.50 for my local, I get 56.50, which is correct. But then for how long am I going to keep repeating this? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to abstract this out, because the other places where I'm going to have these same inputs, and then I don't want to have to do this all the time. You can create extension methods, but for now I'm just going to use the simple one here. So this is going to be a double, which is pass amount, or pass amount here. And this is going to take a string of value, and then I have that. So pass input amount so that we know that it's an input from the user. And that's going to be the value, that, and then double return double dot pass, which is going to be the value. Okay, so here we are passing a double. Now if this value is now, right, if this value at some point, it cannot be now, sorry, but if this value is equal to, it's an empty string, so if I pass an empty string, you have to return or through an error, so you can return 0, or for now you can just return 0. Okay, so pass amount, and then over here I say that my balance is equal to helper dot pass. Oh, sorry, in my helper I need to declare this as static so that I can access it. Pass amount, and I pass this. Now this should give me the same result. So right, so now we don't get the 0.50 anymore because it's 0, but as soon as I do 1, I get 501. But if I do 50, it's a double, so we don't have that. Okay, so now we have this. The next thing is we need to make the account, so we can get our accounts. We already created some accounts. We'll go ahead and then look at how to create accounts. So over here we need the account type, the currency, the name, the initial balance, and the color code. So I'm going to call this initial balance. Okay, so that's my initial balance. Now, as I said, we need a model, we need a controller, and a service when we have to do these things. Now, because we are going to create first and we do not know what the model is going to look like, even though we can look at what the model looks like here and then design it, we can do it the other way around, where we just want to make sure that we're able to create the record. So I first create my controller. So I can go ahead and duplicate this and then call it account. So I go in here, change account controller. Okay, now this is going to return a result, and then I'm going to call this create. Now for my account, I need to create account. I need, like I said, I need the account. Let me fix this. I need the account type. I need the currency. We can order it also. I need the double initial balance, and then the string name. Okay, and then so the initial balance, the string name, and all that. For the color code, for now we are not doing it. We can look at it in our subsequent episodes where we use the color picker and all that. And then we are going to make a post with these values. So we need to sort our URL. So it's slash account. So account URL is account. All right, so this is going to be account, and these are the options. So we have the account type, which is going to be the account type. We have the currency, which is going to be the currency. Oh, sorry. Okay, this is account URL. The name is going to be the name. The initial balance is going to be our initial balance. This is not required, the hex code, so we are just going to ignore it for now. And once we create an account, we get this result. For now, we do not want to handle the results. We just want to show what the message is, okay, to the user. So I have an issue. Yeah, I'm going to fix it. All right, initial balance. Okay. Now we have this. We do this. Now when we click on it, we need to make the API call. In our previous episode, we are managing states where we want to show the user that the action is happening. Now to do that, we are going to need a variable for that. So final boolean, which is loading, is equal to false by default. And then when we call the API, so over here, when we call the API, we say set state, loading is true. Okay. And then after some time, loading, after the API request, loading is false. Okay. Now let me do my API. So final result is equal to await account controller dot create. We have our initial balance, so name, test, trim, the selected currency. So selected currency, we want the ID. Okay. If it's not provided, we just want to show an empty string. The backend will also validate. So even if for some reason the front end sends an empty string, we will catch it on the backend. All right. And then we have this, make this a sync. Now let's just show the results to the snack bar. So result.message. Okay. Now let's try one. Account created successfully. Realize nothing happened on the loading state. That's because we are not tracking the loading state. Now what we want to do is, let me just do this first. We start with the test form field here. Enabled. So it's only enabled when the application is not loading, right? When the API request is not loading. The same thing here. It's enabled is only when it's not loading. So when it's loading is false. That's when it's not enabled. Okay. The same thing on this. It's enabled is start. It's enabled start. Okay. And then for this one, we need it's loading, which is what's the loading state. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and show you. As you can see, it shows the loading state. And when it's loading, you cannot edit the form. That's the whole idea. You cannot edit the form. Like you can't edit this, but you can edit the select input. So let's fix that. We go into our select input, and then we have this at the end. We can say that enabled is equal to widget dot is enabled. Okay. So here, when I tap it again, as you can see, it will not show up. Okay. Now let's go back to our add accounts and then uncomment this. I can go ahead and remove this. Okay, so that is max. Okay. All right. So we have, if I do create the account, and then we can look at the accounts here. When we look for 56.50. Oh, there's a different user. So we can look at it here. Good. So 56.50. This is the account we just created. Let's change the name test AC. Great. Now let's look for test AC. When we get all our accounts at the API test AC, that's it here. That's our account. Now there's the account UID. So we can go ahead and get this account. And it has the currency, that's the name. Okay, so that's our account. Now let's persist the account. And to do that, we need a model. So we go ahead to our model, change this to account instead of account type. Now this is going to be type 4. Change this to account. Change that. And over here we have the name, initial balance test, the color, the account type, which is this whole object, the currency, which is this whole object. All right, so we have the ID, the name. We have the initial balance, which is a double. So sorry, that's the name. The double, which is the initial balance. We have the initial balance test, which is a string. And then for the same thing, we have the current balance. So current balance test, and the color code. So 456. So color code. and then we have whether or not it's active. Okay. Okay. Good. And then here it's going to be accounts. This is account box and account model. And then we are going to work on the type. Okay. All right. So let's work on the initial balance and those ones. So account name, initial balance. It's going to be initial balance text, initial balance text here, initial balance text. And we do the same thing for the current. Okay, and then we have the color code and then active. All right, and then once we are done, so this is just the model, right? When we are mapping the model. For this, we are not going to, oh, let's just have it, maybe you might have it in the select box. Select input component, sorry. So we have this. Now the two things that we've not done is this one. So let's go ahead on 8 and on 9. So here we are going to have a currency model, which is going to be the currency, and the account type model, which is going to be our account type. Okay. So now let's set them here. That means we are going to have our account model dot currency being equal to the currency model dot to from map, and then we are going to pass this whole object here, this one. So we are going to say that for inside the map, take that object, take it to the currency model, pass it from the map. The same thing from the account type. So as you can see, this is why the from map is very important. Instead of we manually passing this in here, we just use the model itself and then we use the from map and then we do this. Okay, now we need this part file. That means we go ahead and run that. All right, so now that is done, we have our model. And then before we forget, we go to the main.dat file, we register the adapter. So the account model adapter. Okay, register it here. And then we can cut our type, okay, which is mapping everything. All right, now the last thing we need is our service to create the account. So I'll go ahead and duplicate this. And then we have our account service. Okay. We are going to create multiple accounts as usual and one account. So let's go through it one by one. So here we have an account. Okay. We create the accounts, we open the account box. Account. Okay, we open the account box and then in the account model, have our account model from map, which is going to be account. This is going to run this whole map, and then once we are done, we are going to have our account, and then you're going to put it in the box. Okay, and then we are going to return it. It's just that simple. So we do the same thing over here. We have our list of accounts. There's no account type. It's this account model, account box. We clear because at this point we are loading every account. And then we have our list, which is this account models. That's what we are going to return. And then for each account in the accounts list, let me create my accounts. Good. All right. Now for my accounts box, I put my account model and I add this to my list. All right, so it's just that simple. As you can see, very, very simple. You're going to, for the account, you're going to have updates and all that. All right, so here, let's make use of the create account. So in our account here, we head over to this, just as we did for the previous ones. I can just go ahead and copy this. Okay, so here we head over to our accounts. And then when you create an account here, you get this single account object. Okay, so I get my single account object. It's going to be account, and then I call my account service create. So this creates this single account, and that's what I'm going to return here as a result to wherever it's being called. So inside my result here, I can say that it's going to be an account model. That's the type, right? So if I should give it a wrong type, it should complain that this expected a list, but you give it just a single object, right? So that's the importance of typing. Okay. So now we have it. This create that we are calling here should give us an account. Now let's check it. So if so here when it's done, we just show this. Okay. So if the result dot is not successful, so if something happened when we're doing it, then we show the error message and then we return. Now if it's successful, that means we already have an account. Then we can navigate to the home screen. To do this, we still rely on the user. So if we remember from our login routes, I can show you. When the user logged in successfully, we get the initial route because we want one place to be able to update what the system should look like. So we get the initial route and then we put this. But for this one, when it's successful, we show this screen. Okay. And then on that screen, we route it. So once it's successful, navigator.push named replacement, right? So that means they cannot go back again. So navigator of the contest. So that we follow the push name replacement. And that's going to be our app route sign up success. So once it's done, we just take them to this UI. We can first verify the flow. So here I can go back, but as soon as I come forward, I want to be stuck on that screen. So I can also say push named and remove until. And for the remove until, you need to specify what the route is. So I can go ahead and just move this here. So remove until you specify the route you are going to and what the matching case for what you should remove. So here I'm going to just remove everything. Okay. All right. And then I save it. Now let's test this. If there's an error in creating the account, it should throw an error and we can test that. So we head over to our API. In our account API, as I said, for creating the API, the color code is nullable. Now let's make it required so that the front end will throw the error. So we continue. It tells us the color code is required. So if there's an error, we get this and we are stuck here. Okay, it's stuck quick. But if it's not required, then we just go ahead and then we submit. And then it tells us an error. Okay, now don't panic. Let's look at what the error is. Go to our run. And then it tells us an error. Okay, so that means in our controller here, this is the error that was thrown. So let's print what the error is. So null is not a substring of string. And this is because in our account model, right, for the color code, we said it is a string, but we were supposed to say that it's a nullable string. And it cannot be because we do not set the value for it. So we go ahead, we rebuild the Hive box. All right, now I need to go ahead and restart the application. Okay. And then now I have my balance as 500. And so I can show my keyboard in 50. The name is test account. It's a Ghana CD account. And it's my insurance account. Okay. So I continue. Same error. Let's look at it. Can go ahead and print. e. Now it's not a substring. Now we can go ahead and look at it a bit further. So let's first get what this account is. Okay, so we have this object, and then we have the name, we have everything. This is the results we get, and the only now one is this one. Okay, so we go ahead and look at our form map. As you can see, this is currency, but for the account type we are mapping currency again, so that means that this would miss the description and all that, which is required. So we have to change this to what it should be, which is the account type. All right, so we save this, we head back, we continue. Now we are set. All right, so that's it for the API. We can go ahead and remove the string print statement. And as you can see, at this point, we cannot go back or forward or anything, right? Now, this is because we're supposed to show this for a few seconds and then move to the main page. So we head over to our sign up success here. And then what we are going to say is that init state. Here, we are going to say init screen. Okay. I like using this. Okay. All right. So similar to what we did in the onboarding in the splash, we just need to have this. And this was init app because that was the first screen. And we say that sign up success. So here we get what the route should be, and we delay for 3 seconds, and then we push to that. Okay, but here what we want to do is we want to remove everything until that, and then we've done that before, so we push from here. Okay, now in our initial route, we check if the user is like logged in, verification. If they've not verified, we check if they have a pin. Now we need to check if the user has an account. So just as we did for the user.get here, where we did this, we can go over to our account, and we have create currencies. So we need to have one for get, which will return an account model. Okay, so we are here, we are getting the at least one account. Basically, that's what we are saying, at least one account. So we are getting account box, which is going to be this. If it's empty, yes. If it's not empty, then our account model, which is going to be this as that. So we're saying account box dot get, and then here we're going to get either the key or anything, but we can get the first item in the list. And to do that, we go to the values, and then we say that first. Okay, so that's the first item, and this should be of that type, so it's a nullable type. All right, then we head over to our helper, and here we do the same thing. So here, final account, which is going to be the account service.get. So here we are getting at least one, so the first account basically. And then what we are going to say is that after all of this, if the user does not have an account, what do? We return the user to the setup account. If not, we return the user to the home screen. Okay, so now let's go ahead and restart the application. Now, based on the flow, the application is supposed to take us to the home screen. Okay, I think we are stuck on the, all right, and we can have a look here. All right, just complaining about this has no instance method, and that's because we are doing that. Okay, yeah. How we are getting this, so I'll go ahead and refresh. All right, so we just need the parentheses. Okay, so now if I log out, it's supposed to clean up my account so that when I log in again, it will just have my new account. Okay, so we head over to the logout, which is called here, and that's going to say auth logout. So that means auth service.delete. We need to say account service.delete as well. Okay, so just as we did for the auth service.delete, we need the same thing for the account service. And that means that we need to clean up everything in the account box. So I go ahead and say that for my account box, clean up everything before you log out. So if I log out, it's done. Now if I log in, okay, 8. Oh, I need 1L. Okay. Now it tells me to create this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good. Now it's telling me to create an account, and that's because when I logged in, it did not load my account, right? So it does not know that I have accounts. Meanwhile, I have several accounts here. I have several of them. Okay, so we need to load the account when the user logs in or registers. And to do that, we can go ahead and then in our auth controller here, sorry, not here, in our auth controller. Okay, so this is our controller when the user logs in or registers, we need to get it. So this is where the user logs in. When the user logs in, we need to also sync the account. We can do it in the auth controller, or we can do it outside the auth controller. For now, we are just going to do it in the auth controller just to be sure that we have this, but we do not need to wait for the result of the accounts being loaded. Okay. So here, I need to await account controller dot load. So I need to load the person's account. Okay, but we do not have this account controller dot load. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the register. For a user who registers, we know that the user does not have accounts, right? So that's the whole flow, but we can also replicate it there. All right, so over here, we need this. Go ahead and duplicate this, and then this is going to have a list of accounts. Okay, so I'm going to say load. I already have this. Now this is going to be just a get, and I do not need any parameter. Now, when I get my account, it returns me this result with this. Now over here, I'm not going to load just one account. So I'm going to create accounts. Okay. And then I'm going to return that. So now the error goes away. All right. So that's the load. I realize this part of our code, we keep repeating it so many times. We are going to abstract that away and make it a bit cleaner so that our controllers will be very much clean. We do not need to be doing this every single time. All right, for example, if you are doing like load, for example, for the loads, we do not necessarily need to have errors because there are no fields that we are reading. Okay, now we have our load. That means if the user logs in, the user needs to have this. Okay, so let's for now go through the whole flow. Test account to 100 USD. It's current accounts. Continue. It's complaining about an error again. Let's look at what the error is. Okay, so create accounts. Int is not a type of double. Okay, so what are we getting? That is an integer that we are saying it should be a double. All right. All right. Okay, so decimal places is 2. This is 1. Okay, and then we have, let's print our error. Okay, so int is not a type of double. And oh yeah, so that's because the amount is exactly 100. And then we are saying that's I can show you. We're saying that this is a double. So that means we need to pass this. So here, there's a string, right? So we need to say pass that's and say that to string. So we take it to string and then we pass it back as a double. We need to do the same thing for the current balance so that when the current balance is exactly 100 or something, then yeah. So now let's go ahead. Okay. Then after 3 seconds, we move to the home page. So now if I log out and I come back again, so devsafo@gmail.com, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I log in and set my PIN. As I said, the PIN is per device. Now I already have accounts, so you realize I was not shown the accounts page, right? So that's it for the onboarding screen. We can go through the whole flow again. You can go through on your own where you register a user and then create accounts and all that. So you can go ahead, sign up a user, test user 1, devsafo at gmail.com. So devsafo plus 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Sign up, sends me the OTP. Go to my emails from Penger. Thing yet. Oh, that's because our queue is not running. So PHP artisan queue work. All right. Sending the OTP. It's done. All right. Now you have our OTP 144 44092. Verify. Great. Set our PIN. Now it's telling us to set up our accounts. Okay. So now we set up our accounts. My account currency is in okay. And then it's general, the balance is 0. Continue. More set. 3 seconds. Shows me this. All right. Now, one last thing that we want to check. For the login, you realize when the login happens, that's when we do this. We're not checking if the login was successful or not, right? So what we want to do is we want to move this in here. Now, if the login is successful, if the user and everything, we have a user model here, right? Then we know the login has happened. There's no error. And then over here, we call this thing to load account. So to do, we can improve this load account. We can improve this when we have when you have state managers and others, you can improve this. But for now, because we are doing this with none of them, we have to do it this way. Okay. So that's it. And then when the user logs in, so if I come here, log in as devsafo asma11 at gmail.com, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1. All right. So now that's it. We are done with the onboarding process. In our next episode, we will be looking at building the UI for the home screen. Okay. And then we can take it on from there. All right. I'm going to go ahead and commit everything I've done to the. No, so I go ahead. Episode 14 setup. Now this is done. So we create another one. New issue for episode 15. Integrate account API. So okay, created, sign it to myself. Now I have 3. All right, so I head over to my integrated terminal, get status, get add everything, get checkout. The branch is going to be a feature. Let me move this up here. Okay, BST, it's number 3, so 3, and it's integrate account API. Okay. Now, once this is done, we need to give it a commit message. So feature number 3, integrate account APIs, and then we push, but we need to set the upstream. All right. Now, once we push, this is our URL for creating the pull request. Okay, so yeah, assign it to myself, create it. And then once we have it, I can squash and merge everything. Good. So that's it. We have our issue here. It's done. So you can go ahead and close the issue. All right. That's it for today's episode. If you have not subscribed, please do so. You can share, like, and comment. If you have any questions, you can drop it in the Discord channel. I'm going to provide a link to the channel in the description below. In our next episode, we are going to focus on building the home screen. All right. See you.